Hello, everybody. It is great to be here one more time today. My name is Gary Fowler. I'm the CEO, president, founder of GSD Get You Done Venture Studios, a premier AI and quantum venture studio located in the heart of Silicon Valley. I'm a 17-time serial entrepreneur with several unicorns under the belt. I was on the original management team at Click Software, which is sold to Salesforce for 1.35 billion, and also Eva.ai, an AI HR tech company that I co-founded with Dr. David Yang. Today, I'd like to welcome each of you to GST Presents Top Global Startups, where I bring the visionaries who are not just building companies, but reshaping the world. My episode today tackles a problem that costs businesses billions of dollars every year, yet somehow it still works. Phishing. It is the oldest trick in the cybersecurity playbook, and somehow it remains one of the most effective. Why? Because while technology evolves, human behavior hasn't caught up. But what if we could eliminate phishing entirely? Not reduce it, not management, not train people endlessly to avoid it, but kill it at the root. That's exactly what my guest is going to be talking about today and working on. Chad Spensky is the founder and CEO of Authenticate, a company redefining authentication and aiming to completely eliminate credential theft. His journey is extraordinary, from working on advanced cybersecurity challenges at MIT Lincoln Lab to collaborating with the U.S. Department of Defense to compete in elite hacking competitions with the Shellfish CTF's team. He's been on the battleground of cybersecurity from every angle. With a PhD from UCSB's SEC Lab, an IBM PhD fellow, and decades of hands-on experience, Chad is one of the voices in decentralized authentication. And today we're diving into a bold idea: why phishing still works, why current solutions are fundamentally broken, and how we might shut the door for good. So with that, I'd like to bring him onto the show. Hi, Chad.
Howdy. Thank you for the awesome introduction.
So if we go down through it, what are some of the psychological triggers that make phishing so effective, even for sophisticated users?
From an attacker standpoint, I started my career kind of on the black hat side and switched over. I don't, I guess some people say they think like a black hat. I actually was carved as a black hat. But the biggest thing is you get urgency. So you get people in kind of a tizzy that something has to be done right now. It is important. And then on top of that, really skilled attackers make the attack look so good that even, sophisticated folks cannot tell that they're being
I
fished.
mean, it's unbelievable, actually. I see some of this stuff coming through personally, and it's changed a lot.
Yeah,
So have hackers evolved faster than defenders, or defenders stuck in outdated paradigms?
the attackers have always had the upper hand, which is why switching my career from the attack side to the defense side was, a fun decision, but not an easy decision. On the attacker side, you almost every week you have a win. You only have to find one exploit, 1 0 day, get one employee to click that link out of 10,000. Whereas on the defender side, you can have zero errors. So it's always been an asymmetric game that we're playing. And really the problem comes up with phishing in particular and a lot of cybersecurity things that will band-aid solutions. We'll find something that works for now, but the core root of the problem persists. So then we get in this kind of cat and mouse game where we're slapping a band-aid on, they cut us again. We slap a band-aid on, they cut us again.
So can you walk us through a modern phishing attack and why it's so hard to detect?
So I mean, the techniques actually haven't changed much, right? You're going to get an email or an SMS or something where you're going to enter your credentials in, and it's going to look exactly like your normal user flow. The sophistication of that hasn't changed much on a technical level, right? The problem ultimately comes down to you have shared secrets. So a password is something I know and something the server knows, and I have to enter that in an untrusted interface, like in my keyboard or on my phone, whatever. And that's where the attacker can steal their credential. But what it would look like if you're up against a very good hacker, it will look like nothing. You will have no clue. Your login will work perfectly. You will have no clue that you got phished at all. And meanwhile, we're in the background with the man in the middle, or a keylogger on your computer, or some sophisticated DNS attack where we just stole your password and your OTP token and your SMS code. Those add effectively no security to modern phishing attacks.
We step back to first principles. Is identity itself a flawed construct in digital systems, or is the way we bind identity to credentials as fundamentally broken?
I don't think it's fundamentally broken. I think one thing I've seen happen recently that is a really good trend is that identity is kind of treated more as a first class citizen in companies and cybersecurity realms where they actually have, an employee and want a single identity for that employee, and I'm trying to protect that versus viewing it as a bunch of user accounts. So there's no the mindset of, oh, Chad has an email account and he has an Outlook account and a whatever, a Salesforce account. That mindset is going away, and it is more viewed as an identity protection, which is also really good on the consumer side from a privacy perspective. That again, it's no longer viewing the consumer as this, hey, they have all these accounts, but no, like Chad has an identity and a social security number and sensitive medical details. And those as an entity are what we need to protect, not these individual things. We need to kind of lump them more cohesively and protect the identity than individual, endpoints.
Do you think phishing persists not because of technical gaps, but because we've architected the internet on a trust model that is inherently exploitable?
Phishing primarily exists because of cognitive burden. So to your question on technical gaps, cryptographers have pulled off absolute miracles, and like miracles upon miracles with, like really awesome mathematics that can do really, really nice cryptography. The problem is that that cryptography is not human friendly, right? I can't ask you to compute like a SHA-512 hash right now without a computer. That's just not feasible. So we're stuck with these shared secrets, which are human friendly. And the gap has always been, we know computers can talk to computers securely, but at some point the human needs to interact with that. So doing that in a way that doesn't burden the human unnecessarily, you can't take 3 days to log into your email. That's completely impractical. It needs to be instant, actually, that we work on like milliseconds at this scale.
So let's imagine that we're redesigning the internet from scratch today. Do you think authentication even would exist as a concept, or would it be replaced by something different?
It would certainly exist. And actually, like some of the early authentication mechanisms of the early internet were beautiful, like mathematically beautiful. Like the idea of PGP and this decentralized trust model was really elegant. TLS came along very early on.
Mm-hmm.
And then, kind of profitability kind of conflicted with the beautiful ideas. They weren't the profitable ideas, so they got drowned out a little bit. I do think if we were to start from scratch, it would look different than it did back then, though. Knowing what we know now and kind of the road we've gone down with passwords and having the hindsight, having a hardware token is, as ultimately security researchers have always wanted that. But I don't think we have to go back and start over. Like if you actually look at cryptographic standards that have been popularized on the internet, there's a handful. There's very, very few, right? Like passkeys are the latest new kid on the block, but there's not many other options before them. We had smart cards, we had username, password, we had OTP tokens, then we had TLS client-side certs. So, I mean, you definitely need it. That's how e-commerce works. We need to authenticate the user and prove, who's making the purchase of that credit card. And really, without smartphones, we're kind of stuck because people couldn't carry around, these full desktops. We didn't have laptops back then, so there's no way you're taking that thing to like on the road with you.
Do you think the future of security is going to move from verifying who you are to verifying what you're allowed to do in context and eliminate identity as a central axis?
Yes. So there's two questions that you want to answer every time someone wants to do something, right? So the first question is this the right person? And are they allowed to do the thing they're asking to do, right? So I should be the only one that can log into my bank account. Great, I log in. And then when I go to wire money, then becomes the second question. So, okay, Chad's allowed to view the bank account. Is he also authorized to wire the money of this amount, for example? Maybe I have some holds on there only up to $5,000. Any other wire requires in person, things like that. So it will be it'll be a combo of both. And that's again, the industry is kind of catching on to that, like the difference between authentication and authorization. And doing just-in-time authorization seems to be the current trend where I have no access until I want it, and then I have to ask for it on the spot. Yes, okay, Chad, you can, change that run parameter in your Entra tenant, and then after that, we're pulling your credential back.
So Eva's asking a question. She just popped something up here on my screen. So she said, ask Chad this. As AI becomes capable of perfectly mimicking human behavior, do we reach a point where human verification itself becomes meaningless?
We will not. And that's assuming you still have in-person interactions. If you truly leave in-person interactions, we're in trouble, because then you really have no way to verify it. But I actually had to do this with my wife recently. I got a call randomly out of the blue. She's like, I need our credit card number. And I was like, what did we have for breakfast this morning? She's like, what are you talking about? Like, I need our credit card number. I'm like,
Oh, I
just
mean,
tell me. Like,
you don't know,
like
Chad, seriously, you don't know. Like it's crazy, actually, right?
Yeah, I'm like, until you give me a proof of knowledge of something I know only you could know because you cooked this morning, I'm not answering that question. So you still have those things, right? There are things that my friends and family can verify about me that no AI could ever know or ever guess, or any computer should be able to guess. And they're going to be temporal things. They're not going to be absolute things. My eye color, hair color, date of birth, all that's going to be, too easy to figure out or guess. But knowing what I did last night at 5 p.m. with my family is an intimate detail that we can kind of get into the surveillance state thing a little bit, assuming
Yeah,
that
well, that's exactly what I was going to say, right?
assuming the Google Homes and everything aren't there, if you have some privacy left, you will still have this human trust bond that you can constantly query as well, right? Maybe I didn't trust my wife's answer to breakfast, so I continue. Hey, where did you grow up as a kid? And like, tell me the last conversation you had with my mom, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think people know that, though. I mean, that's the problem, right? Because I think we're there. So are we approaching a phase where cybersecurity becomes less about defense and more about controlling emergent autonomous systems?
It'll never not be about defense, unfortunately. So my background is very low level. So I like, kind of transistor level. I did like hardware level attacks in my PhD. Those will ultimately be the final battlefield, no matter what, right? If we could truly build a perfectly secure system, it would be incredible. Because then the only kind of cybersecurity problems we'd be worrying about are these social problems, right? And then we're kind of in a different world. But the second that you have a 0 day on some low level technical thing or something as simple as a phishing attack, right? Where someone just calls me or calls Verizon and tricks them to switch my phone number and steals credentials that way. Like that goes from feeling totally safe and life being great to an absolute nightmare instantly, right?
Yeah,
Like
no, I agree. And
so
there's
the
crazy stuff out there. I agree with you. And
Yeah,
I've
you
heard,
can use AI to find bugs, you can use AI to exploit bugs, but ultimately if there exists, if until we somehow get to like kind of a provably secure system, which that's outside of my pay grade on how to the path to get there. Until we get there, it's going to be more and more critical, and the more valuable and these assets get. I think Bitcoin really brought that to fruition. The how one vulnerability can be $1 billion profit for somebody overnight.
yeah, I mean, and I've had some discussions with Eva. Eva has a question for you. She wants me to ask you. So he says, Chad, if humans are consistently the weakest link, should systems be designed to eliminate human decision making entirely from security flows?
Yes, 100%. That's what most of my research and what we're doing at Authenticate. So our assumptions in all of our products are that the human does not have to do anything. So we actually tie all the security to your phone being physically present. So if my phone is here and I'm doing interactions and you can't do those interactions because you don't physically have my phone, we're already in a way better world than we were before. Because if you want to hack me, you got to get on a plane, come to Houston, and physically steal my phone and execute your hack before I realize the phone's gone. So yes, I think a well-designed cybersecurity system truly does not rely on the human being perfect or needing to be educated. That part really bothers me. The security education, we always, there's a lot of talk. The users weren't educated. If they were educated, they wouldn't get phished. But we're the experts in the room, right? We're the PhDs. When I go in for surgery, I don't have to get educated on how open heart surgery works. Thank God, right? The surgeon is educated. They should take care of me. They're the expert. I feel the same way in cybersecurity. We're the experts. It's hard as hell. Like it's an insanely hard problem, but it's worth solving, and it's a fun problem to solve and a fun
We
problem
have
to work on.
there's nothing good's going to happen, right? So do you think the ultimate solution to phishing not be better authentication, but removing the need for humans? And I think we've answered that, to ever interpret security signals, right?
Yeah,
I mean, the other thing is, I see these phishing attacks too happening, and they're getting better and better and better. It's unbelievable, actually.
yeah. Trying to notice that the lock sign isn't green, or that the Google logo is slightly 2 pixels to the left from the normal. Like it's just not a reasonable ask of people. It's it's completely unreasonable to have people be this diligent at all times. So yeah, when we get it to the point where your phone has to be there and you got to enter your PIN or show your face, we're just in a whole different world where there's the trickery is just not going to work. And like one of the things, and why kind of our motto, like decentralized trust, what happens now when you go to a website is that your certificate authority, you'll be presented with a cert for, say your bank.com, and your browser has a root CA that will then verify that that is valid. So, but every time you go to that bank, that same check happens. But really the question you should be asking isn't, does this root CA think that's my bank? I've been banking with this bank for 30 years, right? So the real question I care about, is this the same bank that I've been banking with for 30 years? So you can start to really beat all these phishing attacks by pinning those trust relationships. Hey, I go to this has been the same bank that I've gone to for 30 years. It's the same one it was today, it was yesterday, it was 30 years ago. I can trust it, right? I don't need to have any visual thing. I don't need to do a live check that it's still the same bank. I can confirm that this is the same entity I've been interacting with the whole time.
Do you think the centralized identity creates systematic risk at a societal level, and does decentralized authentication fundamentally redistribute power?
It redistributes risk for sure, and why I'm such a huge advocate of it. So like the way, if you go to log in a website now, right, and you click log in with Google or log in with Apple or any of those things, we're in a world where if any of those companies like log in, so they're called identity service providers, if they were to get completely compromised, you could leverage that to log into any of those users' accounts. And the same goes for businesses. So they use SAML or OpenID Connect. So like Okta and Ping are these massive IDPs. If they're malicious or somebody compromises them, the door is kind of wide open for all customers. Versus if you can decentralize this risk a little bit, you can get it to the point where hacking one company is not going to bring down 50% of the world's
What
safety.
about so Eva wants me to ask you about OpenClaw. Is it a risk?
I don't know much about OpenClaw, to be honest, but I know a lot about AI in the cybersecurity realm. So I have a lot of friends that have AI companies that are automating hacking and automating patching and things like that. It's the same game we've been playing, just on fast forward. So there's still people finding bugs, people patching bugs, people attacking, people defending. From my perspective, the only thing that really fundamentally changed is the speed. And it's already been, kind of a fast moving industry, but the fact that we can now detect exploit and patch bugs faster, the whole thing just speeds up. So I don't know if you're familiar with, like, Microsoft has like a patch Tuesday, right? Where they release patches every Tuesday. Um, like those kind of things might get accelerated to the point where we have to rethink the way that we fundamentally patch software and fix vulnerabilities. But the game is similar. You know, the tools are equal. It's not like attackers got a tool that defenders didn't. So they have equal playing field on the tools. It's just the defenders are always beholden to patching. It's risky to patch critical systems. Say, you know, the US stock market finds a vulnerability, they can't just take down the US stock exchange for a week to patch the vulnerability.
I agree, and it's
You
you
know,
know, so the open cloth situation, if you look at it, so Eva just went down through it a bit, and as an open source, right? The key issues are supply chain attacks, unmaintained projects, right? Attackers can insert malicious code into repositories and dependencies. If no one is actively patching vulnerabilities, inherent risk, you inherit risk or backdoors or hidden behavior. It's interesting, and something to take a look at. Actually, I'm going to do that when I'm riding my bike. I'll talk to you about it. Very
yeah, I
interesting.
mean, the supply chain attacks and the open source, it's an interesting place, right? Like most people, myself included, trust open source more because we can look at the source, but then you have these like XZ attacks against the Linux kernel that, because it was open source, somebody was able to squeak in a really sophisticated backdoor and potentially compromise SSH. You know, they were like days away from this thing getting released before some really diligent engineer at Microsoft, I think it was, realized the timing issue. So it's tough, right? Like either way, closed source, maybe you trust it more because it can't get supply chain attacked as easy, but then you don't know if their code quality is terrible.
Yeah,
It could just be riddled with bugs, you know? Like it's kind of a catch-22.
do you think can attackers innovate faster because they operate under fewer constraints? And if so, how do you design systems that structurally invert that advantage?
I think 100%. They can do whatever they want, right? I mean, even laws, for example, go out the window. If I'm trying to exploit a company, I clearly don't care about laws. So that I actually led a joint research effort when I was at UCSB between the architecture lab and the cybersecurity lab, where I was asking the question. It came up at lunch. I'm like, why don't can we design hardware differently? You know, like there was the Harvard architecture, the von Neumann architecture. Like, is there just a different architecture that we could do that would fundamentally eliminate, memory corruption attacks and at least the low level attacks? You could still have logic bugs. There are things like that, and you're seeing them in modern processors. So like iPhones have tagged memory architectures where like pointers can't just be arbitrarily overwritten. And it's starting to percolate to the hardware level, which is why I focused my PhD so much on hardware. Because if we're both playing in software, we're on an equal battlefield, right? Once I move to the hardware as the manufacturer, as an attacker, you necessarily only have access to the software. So now I actually do have a little bit of asymmetry. And programming languages like Rust actually are a huge, huge thing in that as well. So I, I, I truly think in the future we can flip it. It's going to be extremely expensive as a society to switch, potentially switch CPU architectures entirely, away from kind of ARM and x86. We may need something radically different with safe programming language from the ground up. It's possible. I don't know if we'll ever pull it off though.
Yeah, so is it possible that ultimate solution to phishing is not a technological at all, but architectural, right? You've answered the question, requiring a complete rethink of how humans interact with machines.
Yeah, so phishing, I'm confident we can eliminate now. I mean, we have, like, at Authenticate, we've built the tech. We can absolutely do away with the phishing attack. And that's where I want to get. So as a cybersecurity person, I'd love to get to a point where social engineering is no longer, like, if you look at these scattered spider attacks and stuff, right? They're high school kids. Like, I don't want to be at a level where high school kids can bring down Fortune 100s. I want the playing field to be that it takes an expert, very well trained attacker to do any damage, because then we at least mitigate who can get involved in this game and who can do damage. And then we can start having, some really interesting solutions and academic conversations. But when a 17-year-old can pick up the phone, call Verizon, do a SIM swap, and then call the IT help desk and get access to your account and literally just log in and ransomware your company, like I feel like we're wasting our time on all these other really
Yeah,
novel
no, I
solutions.
agree with you. I mean, we got to start right from the basics, right? Um,
Yeah.
so we're coming up to the top of the show, and Chad, if you want to stay on after we end. So if history looks back 50 years from now, will it say that phishing was solvable, or we just failed to prioritize it, or a system of a deeper flaw in how we built the digital world?
I think it took the stars to align, actually. So, like, technically, we've known how to do it for a while. And if you look at governments, they use smart cards, right? And those are kind of inherently phishing resistant. You have to plug the card in and type your PIN in. But even smartphones alone wouldn't solve it. So, you not only need smartphones, you need people to carry them and like them so much that when they lose them, they know they lost them and they feel pain. So that is kind of the magic I think that we're in now, where the stars are aligned, where we can have really sophisticated cybersecurity products in people's pocket that when they lose it, they are upset. And we don't have to incentivize or train them to be upset. They're already upset. Like the RSA tokens, yeah, they add a lot of security, but if people weren't emotionally attached, they wouldn't notice until Monday if they lost their employee's, token because they don't use it every day. So I think we're just in a point where the stars are very nicely aligned, that we have a powerful piece of hardware in our pocket capable of doing secure logins and that knows us very well, right? Like you can actually learn a person's behaviors really well with a smartphone. You can learn their gait, you can learn their GPS coordinates, how they talk, all their kind of like RF surroundings, that when someone else grabs that phone can know, hey, something's off. I'm going to lock up.
So closing thoughts, Chad, and how do people get a hold of you?
They can get a hold of me at chad@authhenticate.com, like all of your authentication. Closing thoughts, I'm a big time optimist. So I think the end is near for phishing. I'm pretty confident. Not just our company, there's a lot of folks kind of zeroing in on similar phishing resistant solutions. So I think, hopefully in the next 5 years, we talk about phishing as a thing that used to be and we move on to the next problem. There will certainly be a next problem, but I would love to move away from this one. It's been an annoyance for all of us for way too long.
No, I agree. Agree 100%. Chad, thanks and how do people get a hold of you? So the email, LinkedIn. Do you also do LinkedIn?
Yep, I'm also on LinkedIn. LinkedIn's really easy.
Okay.
And I'm pretty easy to track down if you poke around on our website and look for me. I'm the only Chad Spensky on earth, so globally unique name.
Thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us today. And thanks to all of you for joining one more time. GSD presents Top Global Startups. My name is Gary Fowler, and I'm your host. Stay happy, stay safe, and stay healthy. And I'll be back to you again soon with another exciting edition. And take care, everybody. Good seeing you, Chad. And I'll be back as soon as this is over.
Pleasure.